Yeah, so here is my Stream Deck XL. Instead of a New Year's resolution, set a yearly theme because it's a way that you're deciding to live your life. Here's what you do. I call this my PER framework. So you want to automate.
In this episode, I sit down with Joe and he breaks down all of the different tools and the way that he kind of came up with this automation process. It's really amazing. We also touch on its Stream Deck and everything else. So it was fantastic to sit down with Joe and talk all about how he makes his life faster by automating everything. Hey, perfect peeps. Welcome back to CodingCatDev podcast. I've got Joe on the show today. What's going on, Joe?
Not too much, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm trying to stay warm. It finally cracked above freezing here in Michigan, so it's been a nice change for once.
Yes, I am in southeastern Pennsylvania. And,
Nice.
Same. It was like 50 yesterday, and it was very balmy. I was no jacket.
Yeah, I saw people out with shirts out, not full shirts off, but with t-shirts on, and I'm like, what are you doing? I hadn't been outside yet, and finally realized, oh, it is actually decent out there.
Yeah.
So Joe's on the show to talk all about only do the work you want to do. This is kind of his specialty and how he broke away. But first, we love to get to know our guests a little bit more. So I just want to kind of break down how you got started in the space and kind of a little bit more about you and your journey so far.
Yeah, so I am currently an automation and podcast coach, I would say. Podcasting is my specialty within the specialty, I guess. But I was a full-time front-end developer for 20 years before moving into coaching and automation. So, I tell my clients and my audience, I feel like I'm uniquely positioned here because I know how a computer thinks, and I try really hard to help people with no code solutions. So and not no code in the no code movement sense or the AI coding sense, but in the, hey, let's connect some tools and make it happen. And we don't need a custom Python or PHP script to do that. Right. Cause I got out of the let's support code for the rest of my life niche or industry.
That's a tough spot to get out of for sure.
Yeah, and if I'm being totally honest, I still have one web design client. They are a nonprofit local to me, and they were my fifth or so client, maybe my second real client as an adult, after I got out of high school and college, because that's when I started my web design business. But they are pretty low maintenance, keep their website up on hosting I already pay for my websites, and they have one event during the year. And so that's still something I happily support because I believe in what they're doing too.
That's awesome. It's always good to have those causes that you can kind of go back to all the time and believe in something. So it pushes you back into that work that you used to have.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me,
it's really easy to get rusty, I should say.
That's what AI is for, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about kind of your journey. So you're coming out of school, and I think if I read correctly, you did some PHP work in that side of the house as well. So tell me about the languages you were writing at that point, and what your career was looking like post college.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I tell people that I went to grad school basically to extend the clock on my own business, right? If I have two more, but what I didn't consider there, what I never consider is how much work grad school was. So I have my master's in software engineering. During grad school, we did primarily Java at the time, but it was more lax. We could use the language we wanted as long as we were able to reinforce the things we were learning. But we used the Lego robotic kit.
Oh yeah.
And that was Java by the time we got to it, which is insane. That feels like it should be C. But so coming out of college, I did freelance for myself for a little bit. I tell people that my weapons of choice were HTML, CSS, and PHP. JavaScript only in the sense that like I could find something on Stack Overflow and modify it so that it wasn't just like a completely broken thing.
Nice.
And then I got hired at my alma mater to do web development stuff. And so again, I brought in like the mobile side, like the responsive design side of things. I had made a name for myself, especially in the WordPress space, doing responsive websites, right? Which is probably a term that we don't say very much anymore because it's just kind of expected.
Yeah.
So for our younger listeners, responsive websites, that was the term that we used for sites that adjusted to the size of the device they were being viewed on.
Let's just
Um,
remind these folks that people were designing things in like tables and had no concept of what a grid or a Flexbox was back then. So it was a lot of work.
yeah, in 2011, I guess for to level set, I graduated grad school in '09. I'm not sure Flexbox like predated Grid a little bit,
Yeah.
but I don't know that any of them had any really support for browsers at the time. And so what people were doing were they'd have like the M dot as the subdomain for their mobile website. And then they'd have the top level domain
Yep.
be like the desktop website.
Yep.
And so when I got hired at the University of Scranton, one of my like pet projects was let's make our website properly responsive. Let's roll out a web-based mobile app that, we didn't, we could put the icon on the iPhone screen or whatever, but we didn't need like full-on app development.
Yeah.
And so that was really fun until I realized that like I was the most knowledgeable person in my department. I never wanted to be this. I sound very high on my own supply right now. I never wanted to be the smartest person in the room because I couldn't learn, and I was at 26. People would come to me for questions, and I'm like, oh, I'm 26. I need to like learn more before I'm like the guy that people come to. So I got a job at an agency, where I definitely was not the smartest person in the room, and that was really good. I stayed there basically until our first child. I'm married. I have 3 small kids. I stayed there until our first was born, and then I realized like, oh, being a developer at an agency is very incompatible with the type of dad I want to be.
Yeah.
And so that's when I struck out on my own. Still did web development for a little bit, and then I started getting way more questions about podcasting instead of web development. And I thought, oh, this is fun and I'm not on call, right? There's no world in which like there's a mission critical podcast going down on a Saturday night, right?
Yeah.
So,
Maybe armchair expert. I don't know.
right,
I
yeah.
don't know what numbers are around there, but
Yeah. Even like, like Josh Barrow
yeah.
is a left of center journalist. And he runs the Very Serious newsletter. And he says there's no such thing as an emergency podcast because
That's
just
fair.
by virtue of what podcasts are,
Yep.
there's no emergency, right? Like you can't do a breaking news, this is happening right now podcast. So
Yeah.
I like that. That's the kind of dad I want to be, where like I can clock out at 5 o'clock on
Yeah.
evenings,
That's dope.
on weekdays. Yeah.
Love it. I got to rewind for a minute because you dropped the name, University of Scranton. How many office questions do you get?
So many. Yeah, Scranton like the office is always the first one, and I say yes. And we do have like a mural there, and like there is a cross street of Dunder and Mifflin. I think that's where they got the name.
Oh, clever! I didn't know that.
So yeah, so I lived right in the downtown, off of a street named called Spruce Street, which is now called Biden Street. I think they renamed it after he became president.
Nice.
Which I'm sure was like really exciting for everybody who lived on that street, who were like, great, now I got to change my address.
Yeah.
So
It'll never be
um
right again.
yeah, right, exactly. I think it's like recognized as both for like there's like a grace period. I don't know the details. I had moved already, but yeah, so I get tons of questions. My claim to almost fame there is they did when the show ended, they did an office wrap party in Scranton. where they had like a big thing at the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, which is a Yankee AAA affiliate. They have a stadium there. And then I get a text that night at like, I didn't watch the show, by the way, so I'm sorry anybody who loves The Office. I just like, I feel awkward comedy and I couldn't do it. So I get a text at like 10:30 at night saying like, yo, come to Backyard Ale House, which was across the square from where I lived. Um, Jenna Fisher and John Krasinski are bartending.
Oh wow.
That's Jim and Pam, if for those who don't know. And I was in my hometown about 2 hours away for like a family event, and I'm like, oh no. I didn't watch The Office, but I loved John Krasinski and
Yep.
Jenna Fisher. So like I missed it. I missed out, but that's okay.
Oh, I thought you were gonna tell me about some crazy drive you made to get in there.
No, I was like, if it was like Friends, maybe, but like, also it was like 10:30, right? So
Right.
I'm like, all right, if I get there
It'll
at
be closing
12:30,
time.
will they still be there?
Nice. Well, I love kind of pausing there because I think that's an awesome moment to pause on. We're gonna take a quick sponsor break and then we'll be right back. Hey there, perfect peeps. I just started a brand new series called What the Fuck Is? And I feel like every developer is always wondering that. Like, what the fuck is MCP servers? What the fuck is Firebase? What the fuck is this, that, the other thing? So here's the first video. Go check it out now. So Joe, that was awesome story. Thanks for leading into that kind of with ending on Scranton. That's such a fun story about the office and everything. So we got to know a little bit more about Joe and kind of coming out of college and like being a web dev, but ultimately like your biggest transition is kind of into podcasting and what we're talking about today. If I drop the banner here, how to automate your work and free your time, which I am desperate to know about because I think everything you're doing is what I attempt to do with my podcast. And like, I have no free time. Like, I have a full 40+ hour job during the day. I run the podcast on nights and weekends. I'm also writing this other thing for a hopeful VC startup. I have zero time ever. And like, my wife and I have to carve out a day, and my son and I have to carve out days to like make sure we hang out, or otherwise I just miss it all. So tell me how you got started, kind of like breaking into this and what that journey's been like from the beginning.
Yeah, so I like to tell people, at least in this space, right, that the word hacker started like originally meant finding a shortcut, essentially, right? It wasn't like breaking into computers or whatever. It was like figuring out how to do something in less time.
Sure.
And this is headcanon for me. I don't know if this is real. This is headcanon for me. I imagine it's because like way, way back, like people would like hack through the woods and make paths to create shorter paths. Don't know if that's true though. It's just headcanon.
I'll have to look that
So
one up.
I have right, interesting. Probably something we can look up. But I have always been that kind of hacker, right? Like, how can I find a shortcut? Case in point, I mentioned I have my master's in software engineering. I've never taken calculus. Like, I found a way to get my computer science requirements in undergrad to be able to do the master's program, and like barely took any math. I took a couple of statistics courses, right? So
Nice.
working the system in that way has just always been very appealing to me.
I think a lot of people that aren't in like I have information systems and computer information systems as my master's, and I think a lot of people think we're like crazy math wizards or something like that. And like a big part of it for like back end especially is logic. There's not math day in day out unless you're doing something that requires computation, right? So
Right. If you're
it's kind of
making
funny.
like, someone asked me like what hyper realistic 3D models do, like what's the point of them? And I'm like, well, if the physics is right, then they can like they can simulate natural disasters accurately. And then you can create an accurate disaster recovery plan. And that requires a ton of math, right? Because like you need to understand physics. Or like if you're making video games, that requires a ton of math. But like you I'm not like I'm not recreating like Doom in the browser,
Right.
right? So,
Like
I
there are people
definitely,
that
yeah.
do that out there, but they are probably the crazy math wizards. We'll leave that to them.
Yes, yeah, and like I took like one ray tracing course, and it was like not for me. I'd rather build an application that like performs a task for me, so I never have to think about it again, right? And so, um, that was kind of always the case for me. And then when I transitioned into, I'm gonna say like real person self employment, because like I was self employed in high school, I was self employed in college, no stakes at that point, right? And then like when my daughter was born and she was 3 months old and my wife is home on maternity leave and I'm the breadwinner and I'm leaving my full time job, like now it's like, all right, the rubber is hitting the road here.
Yeah.
Um, and the first real time that I realized, like, oh my gosh, I need to do something about how I'm spending my time and trying not to burn out was after our babysitter like I mean she got a real job, right? The problem with babysitters is that they get older and then they get real person
Yep.
jobs. uh so or at least that's what you hope for them, right? Like you don't want to pay them $15 an hour for the rest of their lives, right? So
Totally.
um I ended up having to watch my daughter more because we didn't find a suitable replacement, and like the daycare was full for a while. And so my friend said, "Hey, what if you took stuff off of your plate?" And what he meant was, you should say no to more things. And what I heard was, yes, how can I make robots do some of my day to day stuff? And so that's when I first got into using like Zapier or Make.com, then Integromat, to
Okay.
automate some of the tasks. Like when someone fills out my calendar, like send them a survey or whatever, like send them questions or just add them to, at the time it was Airtable, stuff like that, right? So I
What
was
point did
lighting,
you
yeah.
like when did you decide as like the developer that we are, because I've done this dozens of times where I'm like, I'm not gonna pay for Zapier. Like I can write this all myself. How many iterations did you have to go through to like finally walk away from that model?
Man, yeah, that's so great, right? Because we like, yeah, developers think like that. Why would I pay for this when I could write something myself?
Yep.
Um, and the way I think about it is you don't go to a restaurant because you can't cook for yourself.
Right.
Most people, I would say, right? You go to a restaurant because you don't want to have to cook for yourself. You don't want to have to get the ingredients and then put everything together and then hope it's good and then eat it and then do the dishes. You want to sit down, say I want this, eat
It's
it
like,
and
this is
leave.
a great analogy. I love it.
Right. Yeah. And so like I realized at this point I had too much on my plate. Okay, I'll pay Zapier $20 a month so that I don't have to write and then support code
Right.
and like hope that my server doesn't go down, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
and
and
it's
like on top of that, like actually writing all of it too to like have it correctly going. I always kind of jump back and say like for me, it's just a number. It doesn't mean anything towards my salary or anything. But I always say, is it worth $100 an hour for you to do this right now? Because
yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
exactly right.
I will
Yeah.
spend 8 hours to get this close to right. And it's like, well, you just paid for Zapier for 3 years. So like that's the mindset I always have to get into.
Yes, and like when you're younger, you have all the time in the world and no
Exactly.
money, right?
Yep.
But when you get older, man, my when my kids are like, "I'm bored," I say, "I would literally kill to be bored."
Yeah.
Like, I would love to be bored, right? And
Even when
so,
you're trying to, like, sit there and relax, you're still thinking about, like, stuff you should be doing, like, I can never get it off my mind.
yes, my yearly theme, I don't know if you're familiar with yearly themes from like CGP Grey and the Cortex
I
podcast, but
am not. You might have to
oh,
break that down for us.
it's like one of my favorites. So like instead of a New Year's resolution, here's the 30-second elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Instead of a New Year's resolution, you set a yearly theme because it's a way that you're deciding to live your life for that year or for that whatever amount of time, right? it's a lot like people like pick their word of the year,
Yep.
right? I feel it's very similar. It's a little more structured though. And so like my yearly theme for 2025 is the year of being present. There are principles for that and practices I need to think about. So like my wife Erin and I went to Gettysburg this past weekend. It was my Christmas gift because I'm entering my dad who's too into American wars era.
Okay.
And so I was sitting in this beautiful bed and breakfast in an historic town, right? Like the turning point of the Civil War for a lot of people. And I started thinking about the stuff I had to do on Monday, and I had to remind myself, like, hey,
Yep.
the kids are with Pop Pop, the dog is with Pop Pop, the kids aren't here, so just relax. You didn't bring your laptop,
Yeah.
just enjoy yourself.
It's
So
incredibly
yeah,
difficult, but incredibly powerful to be able to like shut that side down and like actually mentally clear and like take all of the noise out. It's huge. I have a huge, like a very, very hard time doing it. So
yeah, and you know something that helps me. I know we're on a bit of a tangent here. I'll finish my story very soon. Something that really helps me. I'm gonna bet that your audience is really into Obsidian. I don't know. Do you use Obsidian? Yeah, right.
yeah,
I like.
I
I
keep
have.
going back and forth probably per year from Obsidian with this Excalibur plugin to Notion Excalibur. So
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
on back on the Notion path again because there's some really nice things like the Chrome plugin and stuff like that. But I'll set that aside. My listeners definitely use Obsidian.
Yeah. So my I have a startup and shutdown routine, and it's all in Obsidian. And one of the best things I ever did was set up an Apple shortcut to basically do my shutdown routine via dictation.
Oh wow. Okay.
Cause then I can just like while I'm driving to get my kids, just like it gives me 4 prompts and I just word vomit. And I know it's all gonna be in Obsidian.
Nice.
Um and that helps me kind of mentally clear the deck so that I'm not thinking about, oh well, I forgot to do this before I left work. Like I know that it's written down now. And that's just been like so helpful. Um and so like to kind of get back to your original question, like how did I get down this path? Um Before I was doing the shutdown routine, and before I really got into automation, I had a panic attack. My wife's a nurse. We had our second kid. It was November 2020. So she was working a lot and I was not working at all. And my business was still kind of the breadwinner in the family. And so I'm freaking out and I have a panic attack. And it's my oldest, who at the time was 3, brought me a bottle of water and said, "It's okay, daddy. Like everything's going to be okay." Right. Crazy, right? If you're a
That's
parent,
tough,
like
man.
that's, and I felt like so proud of her empathy and also like as a failure, like she shouldn't have to take care of me. And so like got up off the floor and I made a promise to myself that I'm not going to put her in this position again. And so the next day I could work, I made a list of everything I did and then I put a check mark next to the things that only I could do. Everything else I automated or delegated to my virtual assistant who is still with me to this day.
Wow.
Um, Fast forward a year, we welcomed our third into the world, and I took off 6 weeks for paternity without freaking out because I had put those systems in place.
That's amazing. So, congratulations for you having that realization. I'm sorry you had to go through that realization, first of all.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
I, I'm I'm like crazy curious about what that's like though. Like I've written down, I have a blog post out there about everything it takes to produce a podcast because it's ridiculous. Like it's
Hmm.
so complicated. And when I go through that, like I just sat down with somebody who's hopefully going to take over some more of the editing or like post stuff that needs to occur. When I go through that, I'm like, wow, like this is crazy complex. All the things that have to occur, right? Like a video has to go here, a blog post has to go there. And like I do have automations in place for some of this, but it's still a lot of work that needs to be done. How do you take and like a lot of these things don't have APIs and things like that. How do you actually carve out the pieces that like literally a computer can do versus like a human has to do this to some degree. How do you automate all of it? Like, how do you get into that phase?
Yeah, what an amazing question. So I think it really comes down to uh, this primary question. Are the inputs always the same? And is the outcome or are the outputs always the same? Because if the answer to that is yes, then you could probably automate it with a computer, right? Like
True.
you're going to get this data set in this format. I expect you to do this with it. This question is getting a little fuzzy thanks to AI. Like,
Right.
over the summer, we send our kids to a Catholic school and they send us out a Word document of the school calendar, and it's just dreadful. Um, I gave that to Chat GPT and I said, whatever the whole preamble prompt was
Yeah.
that I may or may not have needed, like act like a calendar, whatever I said. Um, I said, basically take this Word document and turn it into an ICS file that I can import into Google Calendar.
Wow. Okay.
And it did it. And I was floored. So, like, is the input and output exactly the same? Like, that's getting a little fuzzy, but for all intents and purposes, that's the question I try to answer. Because if that is true, then like yes, you can probably have a computer automate it, right? You could do some cleanup, right? I mean, if I assume your audience is mostly developers here, right? So you can
Yep.
do some data normalization. So it could be like, is the output similar-ish, or could you get it to this start state and then have the output be the same? When it's time to delegate is when the answer to that is no, right? Like it's going to take some sort of human judgment, or there's no API, right? So you mentioned that like publishing your podcast is a video has to go here and there, right? Um, Here's my publishing process, which is why I can't automate it. I have video and audio, right? So my editor, by the way, if you have a podcast, like the best thing you can do is hire an editor. Like,
Yeah, we might have to talk when we get done. I need a name.
yeah, like strongly recommend. But my editor gives me a video and audio, goes into a Dropbox folder. When those files hit the Dropbox folder, so here's the automation part, right? The input is a video and audio file with the name of the file being a number that should match an episode number, right?
Oh, yep.
So when that happens in Notion, which is like my project manager, right? Like if Obsidian is my PKM or my personal knowledge management system, Notion is my project manager, right? Because it's just easier to share stuff in Notion. There will be a lookup based on the episode number file name, and the status of that episode will change to ready for scheduling. And my VA will get an email. So that's the computer automation part, right?
Yep.
I tell Zapier or Maker, whatever, wherever it is right now, you can expect, or if you see a file with a number in this folder, it corresponds to an episode number. And so do these things. That's when my VA takes over. And so when she publishes the episode, she has to do a bunch of stuff, right? Upload the YouTube video to YouTube.
Yep.
Grab the show notes from Notion. Upload the audio to my audio host, Transistor. Link the YouTube video because they have a special field for if you have a YouTube video. That's why she uploads it first, the YouTube video first. Copy the show notes. If there are chapter markers, add the chapter markers. Schedule it. Take both the Transistor embed and the YouTube video and the show notes and publish it in WordPress using my special block template that I'm really annoyed I used because you can't change those very easily. So that was a sidebar. Then once all of that is done, on the day the episode is published, Cast Magic will automatically get the episode and transcribe it. So add the transcript and go to Spotify for creators and update that episode to upload the video as well.
Yeah, we have a very similar process. I just skipped the transistor part because creators.spotify.com. So
Yeah, yes.
that side of it, it allows video upload, and I've always hosted originally with them. So YouTube and then that side both get a video. And so
Yeah.
like it's same process. This feels great.
Yeah, yeah, right. And it's good, right? And like maybe you're wondering, like, isn't that too complicated for your VA who's in the Philippines and speaks English as a second language? Well, if I am giving her tasks that I am doing, one of the times, preferably the last time I perform that task, I record a Tele or Loom video, whichever one you prefer to use. I record a video of me performing the task, talking through everything, and then I tell her to transcribe the video and write out step-by-step instructions. Now I'm very confident that after that she will ask me the questions that she needs to ask and then go off and do the task. But for a while there was like this intervening step where I said, send me that document so I can review and make sure you didn't miss anything and that you understood. And having her transcribe it first and then write out the steps means that she's seeing, hearing, and writing. And then writing out, so like she really understands how to do
That's
it.
clever. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
have thought of that.
I'm gonna say I had a guest on my podcast who told me that. So I'm big on credit where credit is due, right? Matthew Yays, I think is his last name. And so, but like, I mean, to cut against what he said a little bit, right? Because he has like a VA agency. People at that level will say, you're gonna spend if you hire a low level VA, right? Like one of those like $5 an hour VAs. You're going to spend more time managing them. So if your hourly rate's $100 an hour, then like your VA is costing you $105 an hour.
Right.
I say if you're doing the task already and you do what I just said, you're not managing your VA, right? Most of the time it's going to be right. There will be little fixes here and there, or like I've changed my process a couple times, so it would probably do well for me to review that process. Because like, you know, something that she does is copy the show notes verbatim from Notion to YouTube, but YouTube doesn't recognize rich links, so it's just text with no links. I have a shortcut that changes rich links to Markdown, or I'm sorry, rich links to YouTube friendly links, but she doesn't have that shortcut. So I just tell her to link to the the actual website page now in YouTube, right? So little things like that, you're always going to have that, right? Just like you need to change the oil on your car and rotate your tires and get new tires, you're going to have to maintain your automations and your standard operating procedures and stuff like that. But day to day, I don't even see, once I'm done recording an episode, I don't even see it until it's in my RSS feed.
That's amazing.
Until like my podcast player.
If we take and kind of extrapolate that for like other things in life, like how many other things would you say are you running like through Zapier or like another automation around your business?
A lot. I guess there's like 4 primary apps where I'm automating through. Zapier and Make. I use both mostly for educational purposes.
Yeah,
Some things only work with
what's
Zapier.
pros and cons, but that's fair.
I mean, the biggest pro and con, right, is Make.com is decidedly more affordable.
Yeah.
The learning curve is higher, and I don't think it's as user friendly. With Zapier, you're paying for a lot of little details to be abstracted away. And so like with Make.com, you basically pay each month for operations. And so if you have a 4-step automation, that's 4 operations, right?
Gotcha.
And so like if you run that, I should have picked something better. If you have a 10-step automation, that's 10 operations, right?
Yeah.
And so if you run that 1,000 times in one day, you have blown through your operations, right? Whereas with Zapier, you pay for tasks. And so it doesn't matter how many times your task runs, which means that you can run things more immediately. And with Make.com, you probably have to be mindful about how often an automation is running. And then there's like little things like Zapier, I think probably has a partnership with Google. And so like you don't have to create a custom app, Google Cloud app or whatever the process is now to use with Make. And then you don't have to give it bespoke permissions for each service inside Google. Like you have to do that with Make. You don't have to do that with Zapier. So like if a lot of your automations are going to rely on Google, Zapier is definitely better for you for that.
I've
Um,
noticed like
yeah,
a lot more integrations that are ready for Zapier that aren't for Make. Like you can make them work, but I feel like on the Zapier side of things, like I use Social Bee for socials, which is not a well-known kind of social platform, but like immediately they can hook up to Zapier, no problem. And I find that's the case with all of these smaller tools. Like they're ready for Zapier, whereas Make it's either a lot more steps or like a pain. So
yeah, right. Like, I mean, in the development cycle, you have to pick and choose the features
right.
that are going to resonate with the most amount of people, and Zapier probably makes things easier. And is much much bigger, right? If you build in webhooks, then yeah, you de facto support Make because Make supports webhooks, right? But again, that relies on your customer knowing what webhooks are. So like for my clients, I always do this preamble of like, well, I use make.com for most of my automations, but you should use Zapier. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, for all of these reasons. And they're like, yes, right. That is, I agree with you.
Totally.
Um, Yeah, and like I mean, creating templates in Zapier is also easier. You get a more visual like make.com, you get a JSON file. That's your blueprint and then like you got to do that, right? Like, whatever you got to do with that. Uh, Whereas, excuse me, as with Zapier, you get a link to a template and you can see it and then you could click it to add it to your account, right? So like again, one is pretty good for developers, right? It's like open source software, free open source software. Um, Not that make.com is free open source. It just feels that way. You need to have some technical know how to use it. Where Zapier will pretty much work out of their AI automation builder, shockingly good. Like shockingly good.
Yeah.
So forget where we were going with that. You just kind of asked me the
I
difference
was just
between the
kind of
two,
yeah,
right?
pro
But
cons
yeah, yeah,
between
yeah.
Zapier and Make. So we kind of touched on a few things so far, like Obsidian and Notion, and we talked about Zapier and Make. Are there other tools kind of in this process that help you along day in day out to maybe I'll say how to automate your work and free your time away? So like is there other things that are big savings for you in this process?
Yeah, there's a few, right? And my goal is always to like reduce friction. So I make big use of Apple shortcuts,
Okay.
or Siri shortcuts. I'm sorry, I just like activated a bunch of devices. I'm really sorry. You can bleep that and edit. um, yeah, so like that, I use Hazel, which is a great Mac app for file management. And so, something else that's part of my podcast automation is when I download files, they're from Riverside and they have very Riversidey names. And so if they have very Riversidey names, I have Hazel move them into the needs editing folder and then rename them based on, again, the episode number. And so like if my name and Riverside are in the file, it'll rename it like 457 dash host. And if my name is not in it, then it'll rename it 457 dash guest. And so like that's, a little friction point that I don't ever have to think about. I've standardized this, and then my editor gets an email, and he doesn't need further instructions for like, hey, which one, whatever. I guess he doesn't. With video, he sees which one is me, but
Yeah, no, that
he
makes
doesn't
sense.
have to worry about that. That creates less friction for him too, because he knows, all right, well, this place in Logic or whatever he uses is dialed into Joe's voice, so use that file there. So Hazel's a big one. Apple Shortcuts is great. Keyboard Maestro is like keyboard shortcuts. So something I use Keyboard Maestro for. Here's a little one. I use Tela for video.
Okay.
Um, it's a Loom. I describe Tela as if Loom was created today, it would be Tela, right?
Uh,
But like Loom was created like a decade ago. And on a certain level plan, you get a custom subdomain, which is great for branding, especially because like I use Tela to send proposals to sponsors and potential clients, and so it's just nice to have that branded domain. But when you embed a Tela video, uh, it doesn't. The O embed doesn't work with custom domains, right? Which is
oh,
very frustrating.
okay.
And so I would have to paste the URL, replace my custom domain with tele.tv, copy it, and then paste it in the embed. So I have a Keyboard Maestro shortcut. It's a button on my Stream Deck now that grabs what's on my clipboard, does the find replace, and puts it back on my clipboard.
Nice.
And so like that reduces friction. And you know, maybe some people are thinking like it's just a simple copy and paste. But if you're copying and pasting dozens of, if you're trying to embed dozens of televideos a day, which on my like I do asynchronous coaching, and on those days I'm
Yeah,
recording a new
I can see
video
that.
for every
Yeah,
question one of my coaching clients has.
nice.
That adds up. And so
I
like it could be like 10 seconds, but over the week it saves me like an hour.
I have to ask you, are you in a position where you could hold up your Elgato? You just said it.
Stream Deck.
Stream Deck. There
Yeah.
we go. So I used to have one of these, and I never used it enough. And I'm genuinely curious, like how customized you have this thing.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah, so
if you can't, that's okay.
I have 3, so I will hold up the smallest one here.
I kind of had it in my head. You had at least the biggest one, so that's funny.
Yeah, so here is my Stream Deck XL. So you can see this one is mostly I have a bunch of timers because I time track. And I know I won't time track unless it's easy.
Yeah,
So I have a bunch of shortcuts to start specific timers. I have my music control, my most common websites. This is the markdown to YouTube button I mentioned. This is the Tele custom domain button I mentioned. But yeah, this is like the stuff I don't need to reach for very often. Stream Deck. The Stream Deck Neo has a few buttons that I use regularly, including my most common Ecamm Live. So like this button is how I switch between scenes.
that's awesome.
And then like a few other, you know, I have a view that shares my iPhone, but my iPhone's not plugged in. But you can see like what that would look like. My iPhone was plugged in. You would see the frame there.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
then the Stream Deck Plus is mostly miscellaneous. I use it to control. So I use it to bring up the Stream Deck app because that like doesn't show up as an active window for some weird reason. And then I also have, this is just like a countdown timer. This is my recording light. It's red right now, and it's right outside my office, so my family knows that we're
Oh,
recording a podcast.
I've been
I
threatening
press
to
this button.
install one of these for years.
Oh yeah, here's the quick tip on this, right? Because I was like, I gotta find a smart recording light or whatever. A wall sconce that just plugs into a wall outlet and a
Yep.
Philips Hue light bulb. like
Nice.
I can't believe how badly I over engineered that in my head before I actually found the right implementation.
I have
Um,
Livx, and I'm like always like I'm gonna put a pole outside my office, so like you
yeah,
just don't come in.
right. Yeah. So, yeah. So like now my wife and kids know when that light is red, it's recording. I have it as this button now because, I also control my lighting based on what apps are open. So like when Ecamm Live is open, my lighting is a specific way. And when it's not, it's different so that I can like see better versus
Yep,
whatever lighting makes me look best.
totally.
And so now I always know the status of this light because sometimes it would be on red all day and I didn't realize it. And my wife was like, "Did you record all day?" And I'm like, "Nope, didn't record at all today." So
Oops.
now I can easily see the status.
That
This
was a
button,
peaceful day though for you, I bet.
it was very peaceful. Yeah. This is maybe my most commonly used GIF, so I decided to put that on a Stream Deck button. And then and then this is my Zoom controls. So when I'm in Zoom, toggle the camera and the zoom, share my screen. This button is great because I have a teleprompter. But when someone shares their screen, I can't see the screen, so I just push this button and it moves Zoom to my studio display. So, all
Nice.
of this is to say, right? That's a quick rundown. I have a blog post that I can give you for the show notes if you want. I need to update it, but that's
I'd love
kind of
it.
like the breakdown of all my Stream Decks. Um,
That's really cool.
all of this is to reduce friction in my day, right? Because like I set up the move Zoom window button because people were sharing their screens and then I couldn't see it. And so then I would spend time no longer making it full screen and moving it over and making it full screen again, and then I'd miss half of what they said. And then moving it back, right? Because I want to look at the camera.
Totally.
Um,
Yep.
so
I have
reducing
that
little
challenge
frictions like that.
constantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
curious, the Ecamm side of things. I haven't heard of that. Is that similar to like an OBS Studio then?
yes. So
Okay.
Ecamm Live is Mac only. And it is, yeah, very similar to OBS. The reason I went with Ecamm Live versus OBS is the friction, right? Is like I could figure out in OBS how to do things, but like some of the things I was trying to do in OBS, Ecamm Live did very easily.
Gotcha.
For example, using your connected iOS and iPadOS devices as a source.
That's cool.
Like that's like I couldn't figure out, or like it didn't work reliably in OBS. And so like if you have OBS, all of the things I did on my Stream Deck, you could also do with OBS.
Yeah, for sure.
So, don't let that be a stumbling point. I felt for what I wanted to do, Ecamm Live was a lot easier for me. So I know what you're thinking, right? Like, Joe, I am not you. You have this all dialed in. You have this specific skill set. I'm just not there, right? Here's what you do. I call this my per framework. So you want to automate per task. When you sit down and do a new project or something in your business or something for your job, P is perform. So do the task, record or document it, and think to yourself, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? The E is evaluate. And this is where you ask, do you need to do this? Or a better way to put it is, can only you do this task? Right? The answer most of the time is going to be no. For me, it's like talking and teaching. Those are the things that only I can do the way that I do it, right? So like editing, uploading, whatever, someone else does all of that. So do you need to do it is the first question in the evaluation. Then ask, are the inputs clear? As in, are the inputs always the same? Are the outputs clear? Are the outputs always the same? If the answer to those two questions is yes, then you can automate it. Otherwise, ask yourself, can another person do this? Right? The last question here in the evaluate phase is, do you want to do it? Because like I do all of my sponsor outreach, right? I don't need to do that. I can hire an agency that'll take 20% off the top or whatever. But the relationship building is the most important aspect for me.
Huge.
So I do that because I feel only I can build, or I want to build the relationships. Because ultimately I am a personal brand and a solopreneur. Alex, I noticed that. I don't want to say it out loud in case it's like an old bumper, but you had a sponsor in one of the bumpers that ran here. That was a sponsor of mine too, right? They had a great WordPress plugin, and we partnered for a little while.
Oh,
so,
yes. Yep.
Yeah. So like that's really important to me. So that's evaluate, and then R, remove it. Determine if another person or a computer can do it, or if you realized I don't need to do this anymore, just get rid of it, right? Just remove it from your plate. So that's the automate per task framework. You don't have to do it for everything, everywhere, all at once. Just pick something that you know takes a lot of time and document everything you do.
Sure. I'm desperate to know two things out of that. One is how you handle like sponsorships and management on that side. Like, do you run a CRM? And then let's start with that. Like, how do you handle that part of your show?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I hate CRMs.
Yeah, me too.
And I've never used them properly. And so I actually gosh, I don't know if this interview will be out before my episode is out. So like,
We could make it not so.
no, I don't want to mess with
Oh.
yours. So I'll just promote it. Unless, I mean, that episode comes out in like 2 weeks. So I don't know how far
You're
up
gonna be
you are.
past that. So yep.
Great. So, my podcast is Streamline Solopreneur. You can find it wherever you're listening to this. Um, how I built my own CRM using Notion, Make, and Todoist.
I had a really like I was like I'm
Yeah, right. Because I mean, like, I'm still a coder at heart, right? But like,
Yep.
also, HubSpot is too complicated. Salesforce is too expensive.
Yep.
Zoho
I started
CRM is
into like
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
I started getting the like the HubSpot side of things, and we used it at work, and like I'm like this is overkill like already, but it has such nice integrations to so many things. It's kind of challenging. So with the sponsorship side, it's somewhat a numbers game too. So like if you're doing any kind of cold outreach or anything like that, to like at least get in the conversation with a sponsor, it's tough to like track those down and say, did I talk to this person? Was I supposed to talk to them in a week? Like that sort of thing. And that's kind of what I've been looking for out of like the CRM side of it. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I think you're right. Like kind of the hand holding of sponsorships to your own personal brand, it's really important. So it's tough to like offload that side of it.
Yeah, and if you're one, so I'm gonna plug my friend's book, Justin Moore. He
Cool.
has a book out called Sponsor Magnet, where
Good.
he kind of talks about the whole process of landing sponsors, nurturing the relationship, and following up, because the follow up is so important,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so that's where, again, like I update a status in Notion, and it becomes a task in Todoist, right? Because ultimately, like, Todoist is my task manager, and I can have reminders in Notion, but I'm not always looking in Notion for like the to do items,
Yeah.
because
Totally.
that's too much, right? Like, that's like trying to find mini M&Ms in your house. Like, you'll eventually come across them, but
Yeah. You
it'll be
almost
too
need
late,
a
right?
scrum master sitting over you to handle it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So sending
No,
that to Todoist is clutch for me.
that's awesome. Yeah. So I love the per aspect. Like that's fantastic. We could write probably 10 articles on that alone. That's an amazing thing to carve out. I love how you've spent time, like you can tell, like you've gone through and meticulously like taken all of the unneeded things out of your life and perfected it. If there was, someone trying to get to this state that was to start today, would it be writing that list down? Is that kind of like number one for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my approach to automation used to be like I would do something and then I'd be like, "Oh, I wonder if I can automate this," right? And the problem there is very similar to like writing code, right? If you're only going to use that code once, do you really need to turn it into a
Right,
function or a class, like, or a method, depending on your language of choice? Um, Probably not, right? Because then you have to figure out the best way to abstract that
right,
information, and maybe some of that information is unabstract unabstractable. Um, so you need to know what you do before you can figure out your process, right?
yeah,
You can get in a car and start driving and eventually get to the destination, or you can look at a map or
right,
use Google Maps, I guess, in today's
yeah.
world.
And I guess
Um,
I would add
yeah.
to that, don't overthink it. Like start with something, and if it's not working, tweak it. And if it's really not working, throw it away. Like just move on and you'll keep making it better for yourself.
Yeah, right. We're not building skyscrapers,
Right.
right? We can iterate. And so try something, and if it doesn't work, try something else, right? And
Totally.
and start small. My podcast engine that I have, right? The You probably picked up most of it from this conversation. It didn't start that way. It started as, oh, when someone fills out my Calendly link, create a row in Google Sheets. Yeah.
Definitely check out Joe's podcast, his blog, any other materials you can find on Joe. They're just quality stuff. So, thank you, Joe, from the bottom of my heart for coming on and kind of teaching my audience a little bit more on how to automate your work and free your time.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Alex. This was a great conversation.
Loved it. We'll see you next time.